Alright, draft physics video. Yeah, mostly comments, I suppose, but I want to play a little bit of Holiday's video, talk a little bit about maybe atoms and orbitals and Heisenberg and Schrodinger and that kind of stuff. Let's see if we get to it. I should manage it. Anyway, so I guess it's the cowboy guy who is the new, whatever his name is, leech for fleas or something. Um, and he posted a link to a video he had done, I guess. It was just too useless, so I deleted the link, and so you can go if you have to see it. I only watched half of it. It was just a cartoon. He keeps talking as if the concept of this description of how atoms and electrons and protons work, this idea of force elements, having these simple properties and these simple functions, going the speed of light in straight lines and interacting, reflecting in based on geometry, is too much like a religion made up, some sort of rat-a-tat-tat thing. I don't know, grown men who say things like that and then type things like that even. It's spooky. But anyway, especially when it's hiding behind the image of John Wayne. I don't think he ever said the words rat-a-tat-tat in his life. But anyway, so this is in the context of the last 100 years of physics, when everything described is this, like Heisenberg and Schrodinger, waves, and the photons don't know where they are, and all of these inexplicit rules of cop out, where instead of actually coming up with a model, they just come up with some mathematics. And you can do that with a lot of things in terms of probability. I can calculate a probability of balancing this flashlight on my finger, and how many times, how many tries, and what the likelihood of me succeeding in doing it will be. And I can say, well, what's that a consequence of? Is that because there's a real probability built into the flashlight or my finger? No. It's just a consequence of the variables and the fact that my finger won't be trained well enough to accomplish the task, and that's going to dictate the failure rate. And there's a real mechanical thing that's causing the probability. The probability isn't something built into something. It's built into functions, processes, and it's like the likelihood of let's say a bit of alpha radiation going through a thin layer of atoms, and the only thing it can't hit the electrons meaningfully, is the nucleus, and so there's a certain odds of it hitting a nucleus, and that's the probability of you getting a reflection. It's because of a mechanical circumstance. It's not some kind of thing that's built into into the individual thing. The flashlight is not got some probability factor of being able to stand up straight. Anyway, I digress. So somebody laughing my ass off, he just titles himself. I like when they title themselves. You're just a leech sucking the energy from the brilliance of Mr. Wheeler. First, I guess you haven't been following his videos, but I don't think he would say you could suck energy. It's not really possible to suck energy. Sucking is using energy, and energy just doesn't obey. So you have to block energy or absorb energy, but you can't really suck it. So you don't even understand Mr. Wheeler's theory, idiot. Short of having a double hyperboloid or something. I just don't think you can suck energy, idiot. Go meditate about your life and the hate you spew. And again, this is in the context of Ken Wheeler, who hasn't met a dead person he doesn't feel like gratuitously insulting. He's the biggest, fattest coward on planet Earth. The only people he's ever won a debate against are dead people, or maybe books. But he doesn't have the balls to face a real human adversary. And he talks shit again about everyone and everything that he doesn't like, and is laughing my ass off, idiot. I mean, I'm not going to laugh that hard, but it's just so ironically funny. I mean, your desire to lick his stinky ass is just all over your comment. You homo, you. Not that being homo is a bad thing. It's just when you're, veiling it, in some sort of preposterous notion that you're somehow being an objective, rational person, when clearly you're just horny. Fucking idiot. Anyway, next idiot. Interesting post. Thanks for sharing. Well, I'm really not doing this to share, so sorry, but I'm really not. I mean, my mission is to say, hey, for 100 years you've spent all of this ego, fame, all this money, all of this industry on a wrong notion, and you ought to fix it because you look ridiculous, science. They keep talking as if they have overwhelming evidence for all of these conclusions they've drawn, and the evidence is so fucking weak and so thin, and they've walked way out on the limb, and they're supposed to be smart people. And you say, well, if smart people are going to do something that stupid, you should make fun of them when they fall. They deserve it because they're way out on a limb. Anyway, we will find the answers to gravity by, I've already found the answer, so again, you're just not getting the whole point of these videos is to describe the answer. I've found it already. Don't need your help. By understanding the periodic table of elements. Again, it's certainly the gravity affects the nuclear bits. That's already in my theory, so I really don't need this recitation or whatever this is. This thank you for your not useful information. Look up whole minimum. No, I'm not going to do that. On the periodic table. So I should look up some obscure element that's clearly not going to be all that responsible for like the gravity of Earth or something, when aluminum's and all the other stuff is what's really causing the gravity. Anyway, and review its characteristic traits and see if that looks like the greater aggregate part of a neutron star. I don't see how that's even possible. To call something very neutronic that has obviously many electrons and protons in it, I think would be kind of silly, but whatever. I'm not suggesting just whole aluminium, but other elements combining with it. I don't understand. So you really think gravity is being caused by one obscure element? It is difficult to convince anyone that a gravity-centric universe doesn't make sense. And your suggestion is it's a what kind of centric? Electric? Electric's not even a force. It's a fucking byproduct. I mean, dumb. Anyway, whatever. I see shadow people and such. Okay, well that's just too stupid, so I'm going to delete that one for sure. Assholes. Adrian Farley, not relevant. Yeah, so he does it again. Another James McGrinn link. Who cares? I don't care. Okay. I mean, he's already showed himself to be a truther, conspiracy nutter. Why should anybody be bothered following him around the internet? The trials and tribulations of a truther nutter. Why should I find that at all interesting? No, I don't. Let's see. So Maxim Maximum Murr pointed out that, Gary, I went through the entire comment thread, original video, as you did, and I did see Ken replying to people, so somehow he has you shadow banned. Where you as DraftScience cannot see his responses. Yeah, so, yeah, it's going to be unfortunate, because I don't make draft physics videos on the other computer, but whatever. I don't need to read his comments, I guess, in most cases. I just thought since he was posing this video as some sort of challenge, that maybe there'd be an answer somewhere, but I'm sure there's not. I'm sure he's just an idiot, and that's what he was demonstrating. Alright, so Gary Tucker says, thank you for download. Thank you for download. Have a good day. Sir, love your site and facts. You are a clever man, credentials or not. Thank you for your time and thoughts. Well, it's just really no point in doing all that thank you crap. I'm not doing it for you. I'm sorry to say. I'm doing it because it's the truth. Somebody needs to defend the truth somewhere. Someone has to do it. Anyway. So this guy's not going to get too far with me. Amir Talwar, oh great name, photography. He's a flat-out racist and attacked my religion. A religion is not a race, retard. Can you possibly understand that? I mean, maybe you think that Arabs are born to be Muslim. Maybe you have some kind of silly notion in your head that you know because Muhammad made it that way, that the Arabs are the chosen Muslims and they're always going to be the better Muslim because they're Muslim. But I mean, Arab and Muslim are not two things that have to be tied together. So the race you could call Muslim, or I mean the race you could call Arab, Arabicish, or whatever the right word is for it. But it's not Muslim, idiot. Muslim is not a fucking race, you fucking idiot. It's perfectly rational to hate stupid, idiotic religions, jackass. Just like it's rational to hate Nazis. And coincidentally, your religion sounds exactly like a Nazi, except just exchange women for blacks. See, if you just change women for blacks, it's exactly the same thing. You're the racist idiots. Fucking idiot. I'm just going to delete it. I mean, what a fucking idiot. Fuck you, Muslim fucker. You can be an Arab, but fuck you if you're a Muslim. Just fuck you. Fuck you if you're a Christian. Fuck you if you're a fucking religious Jew. Fuck you till you're dead. I hate your guts. Take your religion, shove it up your ass till dead. Alright. Idiots. Okay. So, Mad Flea Willing. So if you want to see his stupid video, like I said, I only watched half of it, and he was starting to talk about poetry or something. It was, I can't remember he was bringing up some poet. Like I should give a shit. Sir Dreyfus said, okay, that doesn't have anything to do with physics, you retard. Alright, anyway. So he says, this is the cowboy, just in disguise again. Thanks for the response. So I have a few follow-up questions as promised. This won't have anything to do with physics, I'm sure. You seem to be saying that your 90-degree rule is arbitrary. No, I seem to be saying exactly the opposite. I'm saying the 90-degree thing completes two functions that are just vital to the functions of atoms. First, it's a place where you get rid of the pressure. So that's what makes gravity attractive. It's the fact that the 90-degree thing is happening, and that's the relief valve for the pressure. And then it does the magnetic thing, where that's exactly how all of Maxwell's equations work, is based on this 90-degree turn geometry. The electron goes this way, the field emanates perpendicular. I mean, it fits the evidence perfectly. So it'd be idiotic to call it arbitrary. The fact that you only have a couple of options, in terms of interactions, isn't arbitrary. I said that can be defined just by shaping things a certain way. If I shape two arrows and they hit each other, they can only do the 90-degree thing. But whatever. I think every physicist should make up arbitrary rules as long as the rule explains some observations. So again, so when Heisenberg made up his rule, it's okay, even though his rule is a lot more strangled in the sense that let's just make a rule that if you start to know the position of something, it fights back through magic. It says, I don't like it, you're knowing too much about me. Okay, so I'm going to resist and cause chaos because I love chaos. That's not arbitrary. No, I think that's pretty arbitrary. This is unavoidable, so I don't have a problem with this per se. Well, anyway, I don't accept the premise. There's nothing arbitrary about it. It's deductive. It's found through just you see what happens. You say, how can you model what happens with the parts? You have certain puzzle pieces. You have an idea of what the image is supposed to be. That's all that's taken place here. There's nothing arbitrary. They're the ones making up dark matter. They're the ones making up pieces that there's no evidence they exist, like Huygens. Jesus Christ. I'm not making up any magic function. The idea of this reaction is not some kind of made up thing. It's a real thing that can happen in the real world. No gingerbread required. Oh, anyway. But you seem to take the issue with an explanation that isn't your own. But you seem to take issue with any explanation that isn't your own. Well, I don't understand what I'm supposed to agree with people I disagree with, right? Now this premise, I don't know where you people get this crap, but do you do that? Do you agree with people you disagree with? You hear them say something you disagree with, like, capitalism is the most perfect engineered system in the universe. You say, no, I might not like communism, but I know capitalism isn't that. And you just agree with it anyway? Yeah, you really are an idiot. Alright, for instance, dark energy is a construct. No, it's a claimed reality. So here, you know, they're always trying to evade taking responsibility for these things and for the people who propose them. The people who are proposing these solutions think they're real solutions. They really think there's extra space being propelled into the vacuum. They think there's a real source of energy that's actually pushing things away by the consequence of creating more space in every place in the universe except inside atoms. Because of course if the space was created inside the atoms, then all of the electrons wouldn't work anymore and the protons and the atoms would all fall apart. So obviously all this new space is created only in places where atoms aren't. And I'm the one being arbitrary. Oh, you're just such a hypocrite. You're such a duplicitous, lying piece of shit to make arguments this silly in light of the facts regarding the theory you're defending, you fucking cunt. Alright. Dark energy is a construct for which little evidence exists. There, you're conceding the point. That's right. So, and their physics is now completely dependent on it. I mean, I can show you videos where they're talking as if all of us agree it exists. This really happens. But of course, there was a good reason for proposing its existence. Yeah, there's a good reason for proposing it, and then there's a good reason for saying what's the consequence of it. And as soon as you ask what the consequence of it is, oh yeah, somehow the energy, the vacuum energy can only be created outside of atoms. Because if you create it inside the atoms won't work anymore. Alright. I mean, fuck. At one time, antimatter was just a construct, and it's still just that. Antimatter isn't a real thing. Antimatter is just the vacuum. It's like an electron leaves an orbit and it left a vacuum in its wake. It left an empty hole there. And they're going to call that an anti-thing. And pretend that they're going to annihilate when something goes back into the hole. It's going to be it's a destruction and a creation event. See, they want to keep turning everything into construction and creation events because that sounds like so much more interesting a universe than one where you're just replacing one thing with another. You're such a fucking idiot to believe this shit. Anyway, but again, there was a good reason to believe in it. Well, again, you think there's a good reason. I don't think there's any good reason to accept a notion that can't be universally applied and that has obvious, creates obvious logical problems. Why are your special inventions different than physicists' special inventions? Because they're not fucking UFOs. They're simple. You don't really get it, but there's 4 rules. I mean, it's really simple. Little bits with really simple properties. They can't trick you. They don't read your mind. They're not waving all over the place. They're not doing any of this Heisenberg shit. And they're not doing any Huygens radar shit. None of that fucking crap. You can't. That's why it's different. It's different because it's mechanical and it's dirt fucking simple. Not one extraordinary function. All right. In 1,000 years, when everybody has adopted your model, what's to stop another Gary in the future from develop? So you're saying that once you develop evolution and prove it, the evolution is going to be proven unright by some new guy will come along and create the new theory when we already have the right answer. We already have the right answer. The planet Earth is a sphere. It's not flat. This is a flat Earth versus round Earth argument. This is a sun in the center of the solar system versus the Earth in the center of a solar system argument. This is a Darwin versus God argument. All right, it's that obviously black and white. All right, there's not going to be a blue truth or a red truth. All right, one of those two things is right, and the universe is either mechanically simple at its roots, at its origin, or mechanically complex all the way down for infinity. And I vote for no, it starts with simple. Anyway, what's to stop another Gary in the future from developing a model that explains and rationalizes how the tons, here he is, tip and tap at right angles? What is that? So again, this concept, this idiot thinks this concept of these two things are different, and they have a path, they have a direction they're going, and he thinks this idea of these two things inside an atom having the opportunity to hit each other, and for this one to acquire this one's momentum, and this one to acquire this one's direction. He thinks that's some sort of thing you need to quote as, oh, that's just too strange. That's too bizarre. No, it's pretty unbizarre. It's pretty as unbizarre as you can get as physics. I mean, shit, you can't get simpler in terms of a physical fucking event, in terms of describing something simple. According to you, your theory is so obviously not a religion. Well, again, it's obviously not a religion in that I didn't get it from God. It doesn't have any superpowers in it. It doesn't have any supernatural, non-physical, ethery woo-woo in it. Shit, I mean, just keep stepping into it. Let's see, which theory sounds more like a religion? Bent space, fields, electric field, magnetic field, the Heisenberg principle of I'm not going to let you know where I am, or I'm going to react differently because you know too much about me. Huygens, the photon creates radar in front of it, splits into, decides where to go, and then recombines into one thing again. Oh, that's just too simple, huh? That's too, yeah, that's not a religion. Anyway, it is so profoundly consistent with the evidence that only a religious kook would think otherwise. I don't even know what that means. I mean, it's not even can't even respond to it. It is so profoundly consistent with the evidence. Yes, that's right. My theory is very consistent with the evidence, and only a religious kook would think otherwise. No, only an asshole. Okay, a bigot like you. Somebody who has some other agenda besides what rationally makes more sense. So only somebody who's deliberately, because of some attitude problem, um, isn't capable of balancing evidence fairly. Because I think the evidence for my theory is overwhelming in that it's actually a unification theory. It's worth repeating over and over again. They don't have one of those. Their theory doesn't do gravity, magnetism, and the nuclear forces like that. Simple. All connected. Obvious connections. All right. Let's see. So why hasn't any scientific community adopted it yet? Well, first they have to hear it, and they have to be able to engage with it. Have they done that? No. Have I attempted to get them to engage by offering them money? I offered Veritasium money. I offered the retired Professor Lewin money. Physics girl. A lot of them. Just to review and provide a critique of why I'm wrong. And I let them write the check, so to speak. I didn't say I'll give you $10. No, I said I'll pay you your going rate for your time. And no response. Professor Lewin did respond. He just basically said, I'm too hootity-flutity and I'm working on my own stuff, and so it might prejudice me to consider other opinions or something like that. He just bailed otherwise. But what exactly? I've already shown how the publication network is dysfunctional because it's obviously publishing absolute rubbish. So all it cares about is the name on the paper. It doesn't care about the quality of what's written on the paper. All right, anyway, let's see. Why do you think this is, given how profoundly consistent it is with the evidence? Well, again, who's heard it? Who's been challenged by it? Hoffaday and Pirro so far, two non-professionals, and their arguments have been what in terms of a decisive hit? Pirro keeps providing evidence that isn't. It's dishonest, okay, like where he tried to show single-slit waves in water and showed a faked experiment. And Hoffaday keeps saying things like, well, we have geometry and that's all we need, because the universe is numbers. The numbers, it's made out of actual numbers. It's not made out of physical things. Anyway, where's the argument? How many scientists have publicly endorsed your theory? Well, again, I'm trying to get them to endorse it. I'm actually getting them to try to challenge it, because by them trying to challenge it, that will be my endorsement, because they won't be able to do it successfully. It's better than their theory. Yeah, it's simpler and it covers more. It answers the question more completely and it answers it with simple mechanics. You don't need any more woo. As you know, Charles Darwin's theory was pretty much universally accepted amongst biologists and other scientists well before the ensuing public controversy. Well, yeah, a lot of scientists already believed in evolution. Frankly, there was another guy who was going to publish the same book Darwin wrote eventually. All right, that's the only reason why Darwin published when he did, because he was kind of a lazy fuck. Well, he really wasn't lazy, but it did take him 10 years, and he was just kind of futzing around looking for perfection. But anyway, his grandfather, Darwin's grandfather, was an evolutionist. So even before they had the evidence, there was already scientists who were pretty sure, yeah, they looked at their penis and they said, no, God didn't make that. Fuck. They could have looked a little bit to the lower right, and looked at that butthole and said, yeah, no, a rational God wouldn't have that as the solution. Yeah, we'd have like, I don't know, pellets or something, encased in plastic, whatever. let's see, other scientists, well before the ensuing public controversy which involved uneducated people with little or no knowledge of the evidence. A veiled reference to you, question mark. So again, and you're claiming mine's not the Darwin theory, and yours is. Yours is the simple answer without any complex angels and leprechauns and bullshit. So Darwin comes up with a simple explanation for why we're here, why we look the way we do, why we function the way we do. And you're saying I'm the one proposing the anti-evolution type theory, when everything about what I'm proposing is just like that evolution theory. And the real controversy is that you people are just like the religious fanatics. And it's not because you can't understand the facts, can't understand how, yeah, it fits, how, yeah, it's right. It's that you just don't want it to be true. That's it. You don't like the messenger, so you're saying the message must be corrupt. So yeah, fuck you for that. But really, fuck you in general. I don't know what the point of your video was, but it didn't make an argument. There was no argument in it. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. So this is Ton Theory Explained. So I don't know what this parked benches are. So since I'm here, I might as well play it.
Down to examine with
so it's a computer voice.
Impulse of billions of tons upon a small pebble as it is being pulled to the earth.
Okay, so somehow this is supposed to be a representation of my theory, which it's not. So again, if I just create a huge distortion, just draw bent spaces as leprechaun clovers, just for the purpose of mocking, that would be some sort of intelligent response. No, it wouldn't. So I'll jump ahead. So they're the ones with the wave theory, and he's showing somebody swimming. So that's really useful, right? No content, no argument. Showing somebody swimming. Here is the twans. So he's calling them twans. Now, even though I call them now four spits, but anyway, just keeps making this. So he says the word twans as they tip and tap upon my window pane. So that's the kind of thing John Wayne would say. I don't think so. So he has background noise and music, garbage images, and this is supposed to be a video. They're so quiet you can only hear them if you're insane. So again, this is anything but just garbage as an argument. Incredible garbage. Yeah, no, it's garbage. So fuck you. I no doubt to be blocked soon. If that's all you've got, you're just too fucking lame. I just make fun of your hair, you stupid idiot. God. By the way, worm in stool. It says for that name alone, I think I'm going to delete your comments. By the way, if you averaged out the field dynamics of your and Ken's scalp, you might be up with nearly a trimmed head of hair. Yeah, who cares? That's When does he respond, Wheeler, with smugly ramble on about photons not existing and that it's all about perturbations in fields, etc.? Is there a prize involved? Yeah, well, I don't know. These aren't really useful comments, thanks. But no thanks. Let's see. Wheeler demonstrates that hamburgers due to the human brain, which he's such a meathead. Again, these aren't useful either. Anyway. Let's see. One channel, 150,000 viewers, 55,000 people blocked and muted. Oh, okay. I might let that one go just because it's mostly true. Okay, so that's it for that shit. Alright, so let's do some of this fucking Hoffaday crap. So Hoffaday keeps using this rhetoric, and this way of speaking. So way of speaking is now some kind of concept. And yeah, that looks centered enough, so I think we're okay. See if I can make the volume quite a bit louder. And like everything's this way of speaking, and that they don't really mean this and they don't really mean that. No, Bohr really meant it. Einstein really meant it. Schrödinger, well, whatever, and Heisenberg, they all really meant their crap. Okay, it wasn't, this idea that this is somehow, oh no, they're just using this as temporary goo. No, they all think this is the right answer. They all think this is on the road to the right answer. They all think this is close to pavement.
Found to say and pretend like they exist allows us then to talk as though and make good predictions.
Yeah, so pretend they exist just for the sake of making predictions. And again, that's not what they're doing it for. They're doing it exactly for the opposite reason. They're making it up to explain something they already know that happens. They're not predicting something, they're explaining something. And so, that's just bogus.
Some good theories.
They're not good theories. So again, the point is there's explanations, and the things that we haven't explained, because we can't see them because it's very small. So again, we can't compile the huge amount of evidence like we have for evolution. So for each element of this thing, you could call it, that's the challenge. You're basically trying to define a cause. And when to establish a cause as a fact, all right, requires more than they've allowed to take place. They've closed subjects way, way, way too prematurely. And for you to just step up and say, well, they haven't closed the subject. Of course they have.
Whether the notion of field is an emergent thing or whether it can be accepted as.
So by emergent, he means, oh, well, yeah, the field's created by a bunch of tons, like my theory or something. Yes, there's a field of corn. Okay, there's an actual field of a something that's active. A field of buffaloes. And the buffaloes can be let out the gate. That kind of thing. Not this ambiguous whatever. It's a field of whatever. There's a huge difference. But still, they're using the concept as if it's not a field of something.
Fundamental is entirely questionable. To my mind.
To your mind. This scares me to even contemplate what goes on in that head of yours. But anyway, so we'll jump ahead to here. I think there's some more mush.
Just like, so the main context of this comes from the reconciliation and the disagreements between general relativity and quantum mechanics. They disagree. Now, logically, under this principle of fundamental laws, either one or both are wrong.
No, either one of them is wrong or both of them is wrong. There's a better way to say that. But yes, one of them is definitely at risk. And as you say, I think, you concede the point that this rubbish that they've based physics on for 100 years isn't well founded. It isn't a very good structure to build all of these assumptions on. And you're basically conceding the fucking point, and yet you obnoxiously argue anyone who strays from devotion to these principles. The principles you're saying are fundamentally challengeable on just the simplest logical analysis, which is they're in conflict with each other. You can't have two principles that are in conflict with each other, that are arguing two opposite realities. So you're doing the obvious, the most obvious. They failed the first test, the first logical test you do, they failed. For fuck's sake. And yet you're still defending it.
And there's good reason to think both are wrong in the fundamental sense.
Yeah, and isn't that the only sense that matters? And well, you've sort of got to get the fundamental part right. You got to get the foundation part right. if you can build anything decent on top of it. And again, this idea of, well, yeah, you can still build even without a foundation. Well, that's a little bit true, but we know it's only a little bit true. Oh dear, my mouse is malfunctioning. Uh-oh. Hopefully this won't be a catastrophic. Oh, no, it's fixed.
They may be the best we'll ever achieve.
So he's willing to accept that the best we'll ever be able to achieve is principles that are fundamentally in conflict with each other. Yeah, well, I don't think that's true, and I certainly think, you know, there's so much technology and data that we should be expecting better than that, in my opinion.
But we can philosophically have the insight to know they're not reality.
Right. So again, they're arguing as if they're reality. Again, Schrodinger believed in his fucking wave bullshit, and Heisenberg believed, okay, in his, you know, the atoms and the bits inside the everything is totally doing this probability, lost in probability space. You know.
They are fundamentally wrong. Or one of them is.
Yeah, well, again, so you concede, instead of just saying, yes, I agree with Gary, the evidence is weak, you know, which is why you can say that you can't pick which one is wrong, because the evidence for both of them is weak, you know, that there's no strong, decisive evidence to answer these questions with. Instead of, you know, you could have just said that.
But it goes further than just this most often spoke about problem of breaking of laws and non-compatibility of laws. They say we have unification theories. That is.
Well, okay, that's really not true. They don't have a good unification theory, so I don't know who's saying that, but they really don't. And they're just saying that they've unified in the sense that they have separate theories for each thing. And when you add up all the theories, there's a theory covering everything, but that's not a unification theory, strictly speaking. So that's kind of bogus. I think there was something else I wanted to get to, so I'll get to it. We're around 29, I guess. Well, see what we find.
And here's another bit of magic they never explain is how they find each other. Yeah? There's no good reason, but they always explain it as the one, but you understand that.
Alright, so he was talking about there that the the fact that these particles, the antiparticle and the regular particle, they're a matched pair, and that what they do is they have physics. The virtual photons are, see Einstein's bent space works because it's a conservative, it's probably not the right word to say, it's an enclosed, it's a, what's the word used in thermodynamics? Closed, I guess. It's a closed system. So in the sense that whenever you take a total from a gravitational equation from the outside, no matter where you go in, you end up out. So you always have to, whatever you gain in velocity, you have to give back to get back out. So it always ends up being a nothing as an energy event. But clearly, logically, you can understand that both of those things were energy. Okay, going down was energy, and going back out was energy expended. And so they do that. So when that happens with, say, magnetism or some other semi-closed system, they do the same thing. They just assume that, well, we can just borrow it from empty space and then give it back later, because we know, okay, that whatever you give something, you'll take it back later anyway. It's sort of that kind of thing. But it really doesn't, again, it's just ignoring an actual cause and just saying, well, we know it's conservative, so therefore we can just pretend that we'll just borrow something from the future and give it back, and it doesn't matter.
It must be an aggregate thing, because you can't really expect the virtual particle to find its twin.
So again, so the idea is they create a virtual thing. They do these creation and annihilation events. So that's another example of it equaling out. So instead of calling this interaction, okay, one event, the two things hit each other and they rebound off each other, they're basically, for the sake of their mathematics, saying this was an annihilation of two things and this was the creation of two things. And the bullshit is that if you had a pair of these things being created, so here's a particle. Now they want to make it into maybe two things, so they create two particles. And then they're going to annihilate each other later. So, see, they never really existed. So they're going to exist for a purpose and then disappear later by crashing into each other. But, I mean, yeah, the theory would be they can only crash into each other. And so what's the odds of that in a real system? Well, the odds are zero, and it never happens because it's just a gimmick. It has nothing to do with the truth. It's not even like it's a little bit close to a truth. It has nothing to do with an actual cause.
Yeah, but they tell the story like that. And they say, yes, if they borrow it for short enough time, these things can exist and then non-exist. Except this rule gets broken at black holes, because there the universe turns a blind eye to the idea of not paying it back, yeah, and being within this certain amount of time.
Yes, well, the black hole logic doesn't make any sense at all, right? I mean, the black hole story, you can't call it logic. I mean, the whole idea of, okay, all the radiation falls into it except it radiates Hawking radiation. So the special radiation is allowed to be radiated. Light can't be, but the special radiation can be. You know, all these double standard rules. Back to the argument about the expansion of the universe, and somehow the universe expanded outside of the atoms. So now we've broken the idea of space being inside of atoms. You know, they're not full of empty space anymore. They're somehow inside of bubble space that doesn't expand. Because logically you can understand that if I double the distance the electron is from the... If I doubled the distance the Earth is from the Sun, you can understand it's not going to stay in orbit anymore. It's leaving. And if you do that to electrons and protons, they're not going to be atoms anymore. So obviously there's some kind of special catch where we're going to change the rules. And I understand all of this is based on just tiny bits of information. So they look at a galaxy and they see that, oh, wait a minute, all the stars are moving too close to the same speed. There's not enough variability in their speed. And they're basing it on redshift. You know. And so they have to have their understanding of what causes redshift has to be right in the first place for them to be able to do that. I mean, it's just such bad science. I mean, bad in the sense that it's not founded on enough information. They should call it what it is. Draft physics. My physics is less draft than their physics.
Hawking radiation, wherein one of the twins of these virtual particles falls into the black hole and the other becomes free, a free existent particle from...
Yeah, well, how it even becomes a free existent particle when there would be no equation that would give it enough energy to get out of the black hole. Is, you know, unless it's dark matter. So Hawking's radiation is now maybe the dark matter, huh?
The vacuum energy, as they put it. So there's another little fudgy rule they break for you without drawing your attention to it.
Yeah, so you understand that you understand that a bunch of rules are contradictory and incomplete, especially like on subjects like lensing, very incomplete theory, very incomplete analysis of data, the gravitational wave thing, very incomplete analysis, very incomplete discussion about consequences, and yet you defend this physics and defend it and defend it. I don't understand. What the fuck? Why are they doing that? Why are you sitting there so urgently and emphatically saying you can't challenge this bullshit when it's so challengeable?
Reiterate and echo it. So, but yeah, so the best physicists philosophically understand that none of these theories are existingly true.
Okay, so he keeps saying this, the best physicists do that. I don't see any of those best physicists. And certainly that's not the history of the people in physics who created these theories. It wasn't Einstein was a bit arrogant. Certainly Heisenberg and Schrodinger were very arrogant. Bohr was an incredible arrogant fuck. So I don't know what you're talking about. These people were devoted to their theories. So bullshit.
Are guaranteed conceptions of reality. As I said, they're just a way of speaking. And so much.
So again, just a way of speaking. And so I can play this guy, you know, the from the BBC, and everything he talks about, everything is we've proven, they've proven, we've got it all, we did it, we finished it, we, you know, where the hell is it? I have it here. Come on, I had the damn thing. How the hell did I lose it? Let's see. First cosmic event seen. Gravitational. That's the gravitational wave thing. I gotta get to that. Yeah. Should be here. Who stole my video? Who the hell stole my video? It's gone. Alright, well I'll just find it again. That's all I'll do. Hell with it. I have it right here, I think. Yeah. I'll open a new tab. Sorry. See if it.
None of these theories are.
Oh, that's Hoffman's dumbass video.
Existingly true.
Okay, fuck that. This one. Oh, Adams. Yeah, this one is the one I want. So I should play this whole damn thing.
Liberty Mutual saved us almost $800 when we switched our auto and home insurance.
Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Fucking science with ads. So all of this bullshit music, all of this drama.
Surprisingly then, it became the key question of 19th century science.
Okay, so he thinks the biggest thing in the universe was steam engine, but I mean it's all this confidence about what the truth is. Alright, so look at all this blah 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 blah.
Weeks passed and a team of researchers found nothing unusual. The alpha particles seemed to punch through the gold almost as though it wasn't there. Very occasionally they would swerve slightly.
Right, okay, and so he has a whole story about the gold and whether they saw the frickin' alpha rays go through it and blah blah blah. Let me get to this. But yeah, they use this as proof. It proves something about atoms. So let's get to those. Everything's proof. Proof.
Really was a stupid one. But then the impossible happened.
Impossible. Okay.
Smaller than the atom itself. That's why only 1 in 8,000 alpha particles bounce back. They're the ones that hit the tiny nucleus by chance. The rest whiz by without hitting.
Right, and so there's the simple answer, right? And Heisenberg's going to change that into an unsimple answer. But anyway, I won't get into that. But anyway, it's all this, I'm just not hitting the parts where we talk about
progressively filling the floors above. What Pauli said was that there's another quantum rule which states crudely that each floor can only accommodate a fixed number.
Right. Okay. So this is the whole atomic model thing, and they're each time they get so confident about what they're saying, and then they keep changing the model, and so they have this nice kind of straightforward floor idea, and then they turn this into, Schrodinger was the now the electrons are waves, filling this whole thing, and Schrodinger, Heisenberg is arguing. That it's they don't even have a place, or some kind of bullshit like that. Well, anyway, sorry, just kind of a waste. Either play it or don't play it, I guess is the rule. So I should have just played the video or not played it. But it's too much. There's so much. I wish you could just get the text from the video, instead of all this theatrics they go through. It's just such a waste of time. But just horrible. The music in this video was just, the soundtrack was so annoying. Anyway, so I think I'm done with Hoffa Day. I'm pretty sure. Let's see if there's any last bits.
Language and so much of what we actually talk about and rest upon and make hypotheses upon, when scrutinised, can undermine your concepts of reality when you realise concepts of reality and morality. When you realise that what we have in language are just ways of speaking.
Okay, so again, it's just ways of speaking. No, what we have are ways we can describe things, and we can use language that's carefully constructed, and we can attempt to be as accurate as possible. And that's what science should try to do. And certainly formulas, I mean the word formula, its intention is to get it right, to be, to have the tie straight, to be formally dressed, to dress the argument well, and to be explicit and correct and proper. And yeah, that's the whole point of it. And that's so it's just a formalization of a relationship. And it's like the inverse square law, this simple concept of 1 over r squared. And that tells you of this relationship of something that's going to diminish in terms of its strength. Every time you go twice the distance, you end up with 4 times degrade in the force. And it's a formalization, and then you can combine that formalization with other formalizations. Even pi is a formalization, a formal statement regarding the relationship between circumferences and diameters, or radiuses. And it's, that's all it is. It's not doing magic. Einstein's math doesn't have bent time in it or bent space in it. It has relationships in it. And this idea that math is something more than just formalizing a relationship between variables and their function, and it just gets disguised in a bunch of sine theta rhetoric. So the language of the mathematics is so obtuse and so disconnected from what you're actually saying. I mean, when somebody says sine theta, I mean, what they're saying is the percentage, okay, of a 360 degree pi, turning something into a percentage. So it's like making a parabola or something else. It's saying there's a relationship between how the thing will go through time, and that it has a specific curve to it, a specific amount of distance this way, a specific amount of distance this way. And that's all it's saying. And yet they're saying it in a way, in a language, that doesn't make it that understandable. That all you're doing is saying, what is this number, this amount, as a percentage of a whole? Well, something like that. But it's not magic, and they're turning, and again, it's just veiled in this horrible language that's just unnecessarily indecipherable by anyone who hasn't been given the code book. Shit. Alright, so that's probably enough. Enough for me. But really, this whole the other subject I got to do more on is this whole expansion of the universe theory, because it's just so blatantly, the cosmic background radiation. Their explanation is implausible. It just doesn't. It's implausible. The universe expanded so much faster than the speed of light. Okay, that everything, including the light, including the photons, okay, that were created by the initial hotness of the original universe. So say the original universe is this little ball of hotness, and now all the little bits of hotness are going to separate, and they all separated with their hotness going with them. They took their hotness with them as they were separated by the creation of a bunch of space by the magical dark energy force. Because obviously, if it was force, if the heat was just heat, and the expansion was just a release of pressure, then it would explode like every other explosion, like a nuclear bomb. There would be rules to how it explodes. But this explosion, the Big Bang, wasn't anything like a regular explosion. Nothing like. Is it took all of the energy, the heat, the tons, the force bits. The force bits went with. Okay, so even though they're going the speed of light in a direction, they went another direction also. So again, it's this two momentums to a photon rule is again broken. Oh, I just hate this shit. I mean, it's just irritating that there's just no way to challenge this stuff until you're anointed as a respectable. And until then, you got no rights. And these fucking assholes, these fucking popes, just keep preaching this puke. Alright, anyway, enough. So, till next time, and such.